All right. So let's talk Shadow of the Colossus.
Yes.
Um, when did you first join the community? Were you there back in the PS3 era?
No, actually. So I first got involved with it back in, it was probably late February, early March 2018. I'm not quite sure. I could probably find. I'm just curious now, like actually very curious how early it was because I think my first submitted run was in April of 2018,
Mm-hmm.
very early April. But I've been contacting an older runner, Plush, after watching his SGDQ 2017 run a little bit and like just asking like basic questions and blah blah blah
Mm-hmm.
about it and yeah, so it's been around that time frame. I had seen some like strats and stuff before, I guess, as a kid on like early YouTube, but that was like the most I had done prior to actually being like, I think my time is now to get into a speedrunning community. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was the beginning of the end.
Okay. So early 2018.
Mhm.
What can you tell me about Plush? Plush is a character that we didn't get really to talk to in this episode or this video, but he's been a big part of it. So tell me
Yeah.
about him.
Oh, yeah. 2018. So about it released in February 2018. So maybe it was like 2 days after it came out. But Plush, he's just a really relaxed person overall. I don't think he doesn't seem like one to like overly stress about things. He's just very monotone, I guess, is the best way to say it. But like having been a friend of his basically since like I first like initiated contact with him, I would say he's a lively person for sure. Like we crack a lot of jokes together, but yeah, I think he fit the bill for at least what he's told me about the earlier community, with like it mostly just being some people that liked speedrunning and kind of just like kept in touch from time to time and kept up. So it was a lot more relaxed back in those days, from my
Mm.
understanding, compared to I guess kind of the not ferocious involvement that it is today, but there's a lot of active involvement and encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
to at least promote the community and promote ourselves and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, what's interesting about this story or this game's history is that, yeah, those early days, it's like they didn't have a whole lot of organization because I think after the BGR website, went
Mhm.
defunct, um, it's like I found a couple of YouTube playlists and it seems like a couple of people are like, yeah, these guys got the record. And that's
Yep.
about it. All the it's all the
Yeah, yeah. It
it's all
is
the
it's
record keeping.
yeah, it's really funny how everything is mostly it's kind of gotten more uh encouraged over time, or people have gotten more hyped about the game over time. It's just everybody back then just loved the game so much and was just happy to
Mhm.
be like, yep, this happened, it's awesome, you know, golf claps all around. Whereas nowadays, we're like actively encouraging people and like trying to find all this information. And I don't know, it's funny how things kind of just randomly pop up from time to time. And it's been a lot, it's been around for so long, but the game itself is so like niche in a way that
Mhm.
it really is a very small community in comparison to like any sort of Mario, Zelda, like large franchises basically that
Oh yeah.
are a lot more, I guess, like easier. I don't say easier, like much more palatable for the masses. I guess Ueda games are kind of a special beast in their own right, and
Hmm.
I think that is kind of what keeps our numbers low at the end of the day, because the barrier to entry kind of seems a little bit more, I guess, higher than other games, even though the skill cap with, I guess, how it, the speedrun itself, excuse me, might compare to other games overall. That barrier is pretty high, I guess.
Mhm. I mean, if anything, I think it's just daunting.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
literally Shadow of the Colossus. It's like the even the theme of the game itself is like
Yeah.
you're a small guy trying to take
Yeah.
on the big boss.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And like it's kind of like you and Agro against the world for, just your one. dead companion. I
Mm,
don't want to lock into saying it's his girlfriend or
yeah.
sister or anything like that because it's all up to interpretation. So
Yeah. This is true. Okay. Um. So, kind of moving further along, you started sort of early 2018 when the game first came out. Who were some of the prominent names there? I know that Plush was there. Who else do you remember?
So I remember on the leaderboard, at least, but really that kind of everything moved quickly. The name I remember the most was Fox Die, because I was mainly concerned with NTA at the time and wasn't really interested in any percent just because I was and still am I have a full-time job and I was going into the office at the time. So and
Hmm.
also in a relationship. So it was and had a dog and still have a dog. I'm gonna say she's not around, but like I just had all these commitments basically, and like
Hmm.
I had seen AGDQ 2014 and watched it, every winter basically since I was in college until 2018, and was kind of just like, yeah, this game's coming out. I've wanted to participate in these events and like do speed running and try streaming on Twitch, and so just kind of like all that amalgamation of stuff. It turned into like, well, this is the perfect time, like I can just kind of jump in and kind of see where it goes.
Hmm.
And I love the game so much, basically, that I like replaying it over and over and over and over again, like wasn't gonna bother me at all, basically.
Hmm.
So yeah, the prominent names, it's hard to think now, like I said, but so yeah, I was just there for the most part. A good buddy of mine and streamer, Zik3, was somebody that started speedrunning the game around the same time as me. And me, him, and then eventually, like I said, Foxeye was, I think, just the first person that like I paid attention to on the leaderboard because he had the record at the time,
Right.
and I wasn't really involved in like the speedrunning Discord. It was kind of just like the similar like early, PS3 version of the game, and earlier where I was kind of just doing my own thing, looking at the runs on the leaderboard, and kind of going from there.
Right.
But I think that's really the only person I kind of remember, and considering now, like, all the times are kind of back and forth, yeah, it was mostly from the early days. I remember it was me and Zick, basically, as I got good enough, were starting to vie for their record, and then as Zick and I as Zick started, like, got the world record, I beat it, like, 2 days later, and this is, like, maybe I can't even remember when this was. Sorry, I've got to go look at like the runs themselves on the leaderboard. Um, but let's see.
You
Does it
beat Zick
say
in was it June 1st? So like a week and a half after Zick.
a week and a half? Yeah, after Zick. So I took the record, and then Zick basically made his departure, and that's when I remember it was right around the time when Church Nero, now known as Cooperman, like kind of came on after he had ran the PS3 version for a little bit, and that's when I started getting in. At that point, I had been in contact also with Hammercloth, who still around today. Doesn't really like he's a mod for SRC, but I think he's kind of put down the controller for the game for the time being.
Hmm.
But he mostly did IL runs and kind of encouraged me to, improve myself. Basically, he was around quite a bit, and Tic Tac, as well as an old runner, Grand Spaghetti, kind of came in, and Church, now known as Goop, had previous experience in the game, so he was just kind of doing his own thing. Spaghetti, Grand Spaghetti, like kind of asked me a bunch of questions, and I tried to do my best to be like, hey, here's how we do some of the things, as best as I could say, as we all
Hmm.
kind of started to get better at the game together, and and then Plush as well he was kind of like circumventing, I think, or like he's just kind of around for the most part and answering questions. I think a lot of that time for me, I was in the middle of a move and like going through a bunch of stuff, so I don't really remember a lot of
Okay.
that specific time. But yeah, that
Okay.
was kind of uh, at that after that point. Yeah, I'd gotten the record. Zick had made his exit. That's when, in my mind, I remember Goop, Grand Spaghetti, and like Tic Tac like coming onto the scene a little bit more. with like time attack, full game runs. And then it kind of turned into this thing of I had noticed, I guess I'm kind of breaking into the differences, but I had noticed that so Plush was running on a PS4 Pro,
Right.
and I had noticed that his times were, I mean, he had played the game before anyway, but looking at the times on the board, there was a difference in like watching his load times versus my load times when I was on a regular PS4 or had an SSD. And so I started kind of fumbling around. Like I had a full-time job, so I was like, well, I've owned this for a few years. I've saved up some money. I can go like basically just go buy a PS4 Pro, like test it out for a couple days and then return it.
Okay.
and see like what the differences are, and notice that like, yeah, we were timing in RTA, or actually like via actual time, and that, yeah, my load times were considerably better on the Pro versus just the normal. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So there's a hardware difference, that sort of thing, especially if you have the game on an SSD. It saves like 3 or 4 minutes overall. So that's just not something you can catch up with. But at the same time, I had noticed that like all of a sudden I would play on the Pro and I wouldn't be able to like do tricks as easily, and I'd be like, wow, that's weird. Like all my feel is off basically.
Yeah.
And come to find out that with the Pro, and other Blue Point games, Demon Souls in particular, now you can change. And I mean, I guess most games nowadays that are newer, you can change the FPS rate based off just the setting. And
Mhm.
so, well, come to find out that there are differences in just because of how the game is programmed, and it was originally made, I believe, at 15 frames per second. So, you're doubling that to 30 and then 60 FPS. That changes, how you interact with the Colossi and doing some of the tricks. And so, funnily enough, I think that kind of bunted me personally with like learning the speed run for a little while, because I was like in this back and forth of like
Mhm.
switching consoles, debating whether I wanted to get a Pro, because I was like, well, the time is better, but if how are we going to do this going forward? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not fair to the other people, and also not fair, to the runners with, maybe some of the tricks are easier, maybe some of the tricks are harder. I it is, and that's where we started getting into this like conversation of, well, what does real time look like, and how do we figure out, or actually real time, excuse me, versus what does real time look like versus in game time, and
Mhm.
how are we going to keep track of that? What's the, because you need to have be certain that everybody's being timed the same way. There are other games like the newer Spyro games that, yeah, there's an in-game timer, but it's extremely inconsistent at when it goes up, when it isn't, and to pinpoint all of that. And some things are consistent and some aren't, with
Mhm.
menuing, etc. So luckily, we're able to find out that yes, the timing is consistent across all of the console versions, and if you have an SSD. So we eventually, in late 2018, made that switch, and that normalized all of the runs across the board. And come to find out that a lot of us were closer to Plush than we thought, because he was blowing our times out of the water basically at that point.
Yeah.
Um, which totally fine. Again, like, he was an old runner and a very, like, one of the top runners, at least from the non-Japanese community. So, it was to be expected. Basically, we're just kind of, curious about what the differences were. So that was, at least, I guess I might maybe don't have the best like exact, when everybody did the dates and those sorts of things, but I certainly played a hand with, I guess you being a little bit more privileged to be able to, buy a new console basically and just start testing it out and seeing, what the different effects were. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting dynamic of like, again, like I said, the learning the game, and then all of a sudden having to stop and learn it in a different sense, and
Yeah.
then kind of letting, that's where Grand Spaghetti and Church kind of went, or Goob, excuse me, went crazy with, really getting down the time very well, and going from there.
Yeah. All right. We went for a while there.
hmm I know
Well,
I'm probably not being like cut and dry about like some aspects, so it might be hard to make this into
I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
yeah.
So there's a time around It's around like June or whatever, a little after your run, where Grand Spaghetti and Church, or I think Grand Spaghetti had just joined the community roughly around that time, but the two of them kind of go back to back, like just head to head. They're constantly pushing each other to do better, and they're beating each other's times, and they're still behind Plush because Plush has the PS4 and it's doing insane with the load times, but. The two of them go back and forth a lot. Were you around for that, or did you witness any of that stuff?
Yeah, that was really fun. That was the exact time where I was, exploring the differences between 60 and 30 FPS. So I was always just behind them, basically. But I think Church, with his more experience, was always slightly ahead. I guess at the end of the day, like Spaghetti would get a good PB, and Church, within a day or two, would probably get either very close to it or right ahead of it. And so that was it was great to watch. I think Spaghetti, for how new he was to the community, I guess at that time, if I'm messing up my timelines, a lot of it blurs, but was doing absolutely amazing. Like, he had studied the game so much and was really listening to at least a few of us that were there to at least give him hints. And I think the saddest part of his, I guess, speedrunning career was he broke into the sub 36-minute range for real time, which was a huge achievement, and still is a huge achievement to this day. But he ended up, like, he uploaded it thinking that he uploaded the video thinking that he had gotten the world record. But I think that was getting close to around the time when Plush was running less often. And come to find out that just Plush, I think he was getting done with school at the time, came out and was like, yeah, I actually got the record like 2 or 3 days before, but I've been uploading it for the past couple days because he really didn't have great internet at the time. So
Oh my
basically,
gosh.
even though Spaghetti was like, yeah, I got the record, Plush was like, sorry, he tried to upload it and like had, like, I think, timestamps to be like, when he was trying to upload it and those sorts of things, to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, man. Don't want to ruin your vibe, but the date was off, and I think that was just like that was kind of a turning point. I felt so bad for him, but I mean, like I said, he was a great runner, and really pushing himself a lot, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that just listening to that, and I kind of play it up in the script a little bit, but the idea of like, yes, we finally did it. You finally beat the world. Oh wait, no, just kidding.
Yeah.
Plush has been sitting on this for a
Yeah,
couple days. Like, oh
yeah,
God,
absolutely heartbreaking.
yeah. It's unintentional speed bullying, but
Yeah,
goddamn, does it
yeah,
hurt?
yeah, but yeah. No, I know Plush, what, like I said, pretty well at this point, and like he definitely, there's no malice in any sort of that for him to do that.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
purely coincidental, and I could see him being like, oh crap, maybe I should have just let him have it for a day, or that sort of thing. But is it worse to like take it away immediately afterward? I don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you. Okay, all right. Um, so uh, you were playing around with the PS4 Pro and the regular PS4 stuff, and Church eventually beats Plush, right?
Yep.
Plush puts out his last, I think his last PB, which was like an 18-18 or something like that, right around the change from IGT or to
Hmm.
IGT, I should say.
Yeah.
Church eventually gets that 17-29 run,
Mhm.
and that stays around for a while. But then you would take over that after a while. What was that like? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually, I do remember. So it was, I had been working from home for I'm trying to remember. Let me go back and actually double check what the dates were on this, because I'm actually pretty curious myself. But yeah, so it was in 2019. Was it 2019 or no?
If you're asking,
Yeah,
you did take the record in
it
2019. That
it
was
was
in
it was in
August.
August of 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy. Yeah. So at that point, actually, that run itself, I think I had a slow day at work, or I was off,
Okay.
and it was the middle of the day. I was like, hey, let me just sit down and do a run and see what happens. And about halfway through it, I was like, wow, I've got a really good time going. Like, this could be something at least, right? And so
Mhm.
at the end of it, I was like absolutely shaking on malice, like, holy crap, I'm about to do it. Like, I've been waiting for this for so long. And like at that point, I had basically been sticking with the one console and the one frame rate to kind of at least make sure that my consistency was going to be there and not trying to like finagle it for the most part of what worked better and didn't. And
Mhm.
then right at the end of it, I was like, holy crap, I just got the world record, like freaking out. There wasn't really much in the run itself because it was just, the pure, like it was just my recording more or less. And I got up, I was like kind of yelling, kind of not trying not to yell. And my roommate, who was not involved with speedrunning at all and kind of didn't care about me speedrunning, I just like walked into his room and was like, dude, I just got the world record. And he was like, no, you didn't, go away. And I was like, no, trust me, I just did it. And like was absolutely losing my mind about it. And so yeah, that was a great time. Just like I think I don't know if people were expecting me to do it. There wasn't like much like of like a hoopla about the whole deal. I was just like, yeah, like I did it. Like I'm really excited. And then kind of just let it be because it like yeah, like it had stood for almost 4 months at that point. So and I think that where it was where things kind of just stood for a while after that. Like, because
Mhm.
at that point I was like, man, like I got the world record. Like, it's a good world record. It's like a great PB for me. I can finally just like relax for a little bit because I had
Mhm.
been like playing this game basically every other day for the last like year and a half almost at that point, trying to get to that point. And I was like, yeah, man, it's right time to take a break. So took a nice long break at that point and kind of just took things as it went from that point.
Mhm. Did you kind of keep an eye on the community while you were taking your break?
Yeah, I think at that point, like a lot of other things were going on.
Mhm.
We started like branching off and doing. I think that might have been the end of 2018. I'm trying to look at all my like obsolete runs here. Let's see. These aren't very good dates on speedrun.com. But let's see. When did I like? So some of us decided to get into HGA a little bit more. Um, I think we had done like a couple platinum percent runs, where just get all the trophies basically,
Right.
and kind of gone just like broke out and did other things. And I at that point I was like, okay, I know this game well enough, and I have time to start kind of just messing around with any percent runs. I think that at that time Goop was also doing the same thing. I was just, a little bit behind him basically on the on the come up, I guess. Um, and at that point, yeah, that's we kind of just were i- involved with each other, but for the most part, not very much was you know, that changed, I guess, until we basically broke into like early pandemic.
Yeah, that changes a lot of things.
Yes, yes, because I think the pandemic actually was the biggest boon to our community that we could have asked for, almost
It's
at
funny
this
how that
rate.
works.
Yeah, everybody's at home. Yeah, funny. Yeah, everybody was at home and online most of their day, so
Mhm.
they find online communities, and ours just happened to kind of grab a bunch, basically, people that were looking for something.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the bounty.
The bounty. I think it was just more of like there was we had new people come in. I believe that's when Inception started running as
Mhm.
well, and he was doing very well learning the strats and being very like his approach was methodical, but great in a way of the sense that he was actually really trying to learn the whole game. A lot of new people really kind of get focused on they have to do everything perfectly the right time,
Mhm.
or like start perfect, get everything perfectly down pat in order for every Colossus. and then they'll start doing full game runs, or like, it'll click at some point. And I think, like we mentioned earlier, that just that first, jump in, some people really only take a step and kind of, they're like, oh, that's, I think that was too much for me. But Sean really like jumped in to the water head first and learned all the colossi, and was learning at a very good rate because he like got everything good enough that he was, I would say, competitive, like not super competitive at an ILO level, but very consistent. And at that point, he started doing full game runs and was like creeping on offs pretty quick. And that at that point for me was like, oh hey, like, there's competition now, more or less. So maybe I
Yeah.
should get back into it and kind of see what was going on. And so as Sean was doing that, we kind of perking ourselves up a little bit more. We were like, hey, like looking at old runs, like, yeah, my run was clean, no resets, those sorts of things with like, most of the updated strats, but I wasn't super fast. I was more consistent than anything.
Mm.
So we really realized that, if we optimized a lot more, and sub 16 really wasn't a crazy thing to think about. And so that's where Church kind of came along and was like, yeah, like I'll give anybody $100, if they're able to do it. Cause I think Hammer was working on it at the time, and as I mentioned before, Hammer is an IL runner primarily, but he's done basically all 16 Colossi at an IL level. So it was, I think, a few days, or like the same day, I think, on the timeline that he had announced it, that I was in the middle of a run, and Hammer was like, oh, I got the world record by 3 seconds or something like that after calculations. And I was in the middle of an any percent run, I think, and I was mostly just in shock, I guess, because I was like, well, that was fast, like, or like, I guess that well, he didn't get the sub 16, but he still beat it. And I guess he had only really started trying within a week or two span, and like I wasn't ready to hear the news, and it kind of
Yeah.
broke me a little bit because I was like, man, that stood for so long. Like I never expected it to last forever, obviously, but it
Right.
was kind of just like a dang, like I guess I'm getting old at this point. I don't know. Like, for the most part, like washed up. But it was a good push overall. I won't go in the video, but like personally felt sad for Hammer because he had the world record for like a day and he got it, and everybody was kind of just like, yeah, I felt like he had it for
Hmm.
such a very brief period of time that nobody really kind of hyped him up about it, even though he was doing all of these like
Hmm.
crazy strats basically, that none of us as full game, like, just pure full game runners would really ever do. And so I think that's something to at least say about that run, is that Hummer was way more dedicated to like the real, risk of the craft, I
Yeah.
guess, with this speed run, with everything. So it was great that he got it. And then, 2 weeks later, when Sean got his record, it was kind of like the beginning of the end for the rest of us, I guess. um, yeah, I think I got the record for literally a day again, with just clean strats, and it was only, I think we had consistently, Hammer beat me by 3 seconds, Sean beat him by 3 seconds, I beat Sean by 3 seconds, and then I think that's where my time stands on the leaderboard for the rest of this. And then within that next, those next few days is when Sean broke the, at least I think he got very close and then broke it within about a month. And I think we all got close to that 16-minute time. And then once that happened, it kind of just like set it off, I guess. We
Yeah.
got so close, it kind of stayed there for a little bit while we all kind of just gathered ourselves, because it was like, several days of just stress of like who's gonna do it, more or less. And then
Hmm.
Sean broke the barrier, and then at that point I think it was kind of close to my any percent record when I was going for it. But I was this is very similar. It's like he broke it and I was kind of like, it was kind of like a weight off my shoulders, I guess. And I was like, oh
Mm.
well, I guess I don't really have to like do this anymore, I guess, because I had been doing it for over like 2 years at that point, and I was like, I'm just kind of tired
I hear you. I hear
after
you.
doing it so much.
What's crazy to me is that you're right. Sean was the first person to break the barrier, and that definitely sort of like changes everyone's expectations. Like, oh, it's no longer a foot race anymore. It's like, oh, he's gone. He took it and
Yes.
ran.
Yeah,
You know.
he really did. And I think like I said, to his credit, Sean is a great runner. He's very good at this game. He took it like all with all the right steps. I
Mhm.
think compared to some of us, like I personally am just a very stubborn person, and once I kind of get a one-track mind about how I'm going to do something, it took me a while. It would take me a while to kind of come over to like, the actual like light side of like, yeah, you guys are right, that sort of thing. Like, I don't think I was ever like, too angry at anybody, but I was a little, I held on for some old stuff for too long before I gave in. And
Mm.
Sean, anytime there's a new strat, he practices it into the ground, but with like the best mindset of like he's just there to learn, and really the failures don't frustrate him, right? And
Mhm.
so that, and I think also being fresh, I guess, is great. Like he's played, not want to say played the game the least out of all of us, but like, you know, um, just overall time wise,
Yeah.
like I guess was the freshest of all of us. And like I guess when I first started learning this, like I couldn't play it enough in my day. And then by this point, I was like 3 hours tops of speed running. Like I'll be burnt out for an evening. I need to go do something else.
Yeah. I get you.
So yeah.
Why do you think that Sean is the only person to break the 16-minute barrier? Like even
Yeah.
today.
Even today, I think it does come down to, at least for me, it is down to the determination, I guess. It's
Mm.
like I really feel like if I sat down and I wanted to do it, I could. But like I said, I think I've kind of hit my burnout in some aspects.
Mhm.
Same thing happened. It's more of just like I guess the competition's there, like I want to do it, but my desire, like I still love this game and I want to play it more in the future, but I've got to take a very long hiatus on it. Also considering the fact that by that time, after I was starting to delve more into any percent and kind of make that my goal to bring that down and try to get a record in that.
Mhm.
And which, thankfully I was able to do, but that's kind of where it all kind of, I think that's where I started transitioning, and was just interested in doing something else for the most part. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I think that just about covers it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, because you're really not doing like any NTA, right? Because that's really
Yeah.
been the most of the everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
As I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, advances in any percent are usually advances in NTA brought over to any percent.
Yeah, for the most part. Really the 90% run has been the same for the most part for quite a while. It was just bringing, yeah, like you said, that same consistency over. So that
Okay.
time went down, and then it's stood where it is for a very long time. So yeah.
All right.
Anything like, I guess, random that you want to ask about? I don't know if like there's other burning questions about the community or something, but
I don't know how burning they are.
yeah.
But while I'm thinking about it, what was I gonna say? I just had it and I just lost it. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you're like, bro, this video isn't complete until you talk about this, right? Like,
Mm,
you could
I
just think about it for a second. Just, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you're like, oh my god, I totally forgot? Like jump, dude. Like, oh, how could we skip over
Oh
jump?
man, I think the biggest thing is gonna be the Arcus hand
Argus
distortion.
hand.
Yeah, so initially, because of, let me reset myself here. In the PS3 version, I'm not quite sure how the run was done exactly, but you could basically go to the minor sigil on Argus's arm, even like without doing any of the puzzle, and cause him to drop his sword
Yep.
to allow you to get in the hand. And so with the 2018 version, they made it so that you have to do a certain portion of the puzzle to be able to do that, to be able to do that. Yeah. So
Mhm.
once the new version came out, we're like, well, we can't just we can't since we don't want to do a part of the puzzle because that just wastes too much time. We noticed that
Mhm.
hey, there's just a little bit amount of fur in the hand that you can get onto, and basically it was just such a YOLO trick that instead of going hand first like we do today, you would launch up to the head, get the head sigil done, and then kind of position yourself in the correct position on the chest of Argus to make him do this certain animation where he would like lean his chest forward and eventually back, which would get his right hand just close enough to the ground that if you dropped as the animation started, you could jump just enough to wedge yourself into the back of the hand. And I think that was probably maybe in my first world record video. Check real quick. But that was um let me see. That was one of the biggest things. Because it was just so inconsistent that if yeah, getting it was just absolute luck, basically. And I
Mhm.
think actually is I got a good Zenobia in my the very first record run that I had, and then that's really getting a decent um Argus was it. Let me see. Sorry, I'm kind of going back. Wrong way.
You did Argus hand first
I did
in
Argus.
your 1649.
Oh no, I didn't actually. I did hand second. Yep, I did that strat, and it was just yeah. It was basically you didn't get it. It was an immediate reset point. Oh no, sorry. In the 1649, yes, but in the
Oh, to be the older
3811,
one.
yeah, the oldest one, the 3811 RTA time
Mhm.
was what shows it basically, and just doing hand first for me was life changing because having to try and do this where it was like completely you know um just so much of a YOLO and like so absolutely stressful because it was just so inconsistent was just absolutely huge.
Right.
So yeah. Um, yeah, so I think that's probably like the one main thing that I would mention from like the very early days.
Mhm.
That was crazy, at least with the full game NTA runs. Like Chump, yeah, that was like just some of the IL I'll say banter with some of the people back in the day when these certain strats were found were absolutely insane. But yeah, the yeah, that was I think the big one for the full game runs at least was the
Okay.
that was a big contribution. So
I do talk
and
about it a bit in the script, but
mhm.
I'll make sure I go back and tune it up a little more because yeah, I think it has a lot more gravitas.
Yeah, and that and Hammer was the one who basically when we started using the hand first, Hammer was the one that forced me and Goop to do it. Basically, and I was being stubborn and refusing to do it for that was like the prime example, I guess, of one of the early strats and things that I refused to do.
Yes,
Um,
the old boomer strats.
yeah, I was like, no,
Uh,
like it can't be as
you
easy.
kids don't make me do hands first. I'll never.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'll
here I
never
am today.
change.
Yeah, and I changed very fast, and I just can't imagine like if we still had to do that today, like I think I would have stopped speedrunning this game a long time ago. Just especially second to last, and yeah, it's ugh. And
Yep.
actually, I will say, I do even remember. Let me get my whispers back again because I asked Blush at one point. I was like, "Hey, so I definitely asked him like, hey, so can I? Yeah, and around April, I was like, can you do reverse order? Because I was like, well, does it matter what order we do them in? Like, because
Mm,
it's all the Colossi. So if I just do it backwards, is that fine? Because then I get to do Argot second, and then I don't have
yeah.
to worry about the hand. Um, yeah, and Plot was like, no, it breaks the rules. Then I was like, dang it. So,
That's
all
a
right.
funny one. That's a question that I've seen in YouTube comments, like as
Mm,
far back as like 2007, right?
mm.
Like or whenever the first boss rush run comes up, like they're super far back. It's like, what if we did it in a different order? And people are like, no, we have to do it in the right
Yeah,
order.
and
It's like an honor thing. I don't know.
yeah, I've kind of I wasn't a fan of it at first, and then as I like got into speedrunning it, I was like, I think the order matters personally because it's kind of just the like it gives a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It like just solidifies the run itself and kind of makes it less hectic. Like, yes, we could optimize which strats are easy, which strats are hardest in the beginning, and go from there. But like, I think it keeps the feel of the game more true to itself that we do them all in order,
Mhm.
versus just kind of wigwamming it. Um, and I've definitely heard from people like, well, again, the same question, well, why does it matter? I'm like, well, that's what I was told, more or less. And I think I've gotten a little bit more into that boomer mindset of like, well, like, it's just how it is. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's how we do it. Like, you do any percent, you do all of them in the right order. You do NTA, you do all of them in the right order. So we've got category extensions for that sort of stuff now. But at the end of the day, that's just it. To me, it's become a bit more of a thing that I'm like, yeah, do them in order
Mhm.
because it kind of keeps all of the community together, I guess, more too, that we're all
Yeah.
doing it in the same aspect. So I guess that's
Mhm.
an important thing to talk about too, is we all do them in the same order. Why? Because that's why.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
that's about
think
it.
oh yeah, that's better. I was just gonna say that one of my favorite parts about Boss Rush, and one of the things I think it's a really great category is like way back in the day, um the people on SDA, like Speed Demos Archive,
Mhm.
were like, yo, we should do an 80% run. Like, who cares about ILs? We should do 80%. Right.
Yeah.
They're pushing this thing, and they're like, dude, we have to optimize the horseback riding. We have to optimize like the cliffside climbing and the
Yeah.
puzzles and stuff. I'm
Mhm.
like, y'all want to do the boring part of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole game is about fighting the 16 colossi. That's literally what you do in this game.
Hmm.
And they're like, no. We have to just do horseback riding stuff.
Yeah.
And so, um, Boss Rush is like, we want to take the ILs, like the cool IL strats, and we want to mix it with the whole full game run. We want to create the best possible category, which is playing the game without the horseback riding. You
Yes.
know?
Because yeah, the horseback riding itself is like, I don't know. I think over time I became I enjoyed any percent more because I think like the game, I guess in line with what Ueda kind of came up with is it's so much more imprecise at the end of the day.
Hmm.
When you do an NTA run, it is basic. You have the exact same setup every time for the most part. Like execution is a lot more. I want to say easy, but it is more consistent at the end
It's
of the
like it's
day.
clinical, you know?
Yes, it's very clinical. Whereas any percent is kind of just hands in the air, like you
It's
could mess it. Yeah, it's like you're just throwing a lot more curveballs into that. But yeah, like the clinical, like just how surgical NTA is now at this point. It's
Mhm.
super cool. For how just again, like I've said many times, imprecise this game is, and how just kind of a feel the entire run is. It's really kind of amazing. Kind of, I think some of the points that Sean and the rest of us have been able to get to with, just how we're able to execute at the end of the day. And I think it's left a big impression on a lot of us. And I don't want to say it makes speedrunning other games harder, but it certainly does add it's a very unique thing to kind of get your like dive into for the most part.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I agree. I like that. All
yeah,
right. I think that is going to wrap it up for us.
Sweet, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let me know if you think that you need anything else.